And so, let's clear a few things up. Anything that the mind has to say is irrelevant, right? Just to notice how many times the words come forward. Well, I know the being, but the mind says, right? Let it go. Not important. Don't need to bring it forward. All of the ways that the mind is constantly attempting to keep itself alive. Oh, I had these thoughts. I need to reveal them. I'll bring them forward, right? It's humble for me to bring them forward, says mind. But no, it's not. It's just more of the same. It's more of the mind thinking that what it's thinking about is important and relevant and wants to bring it forward. It's not humble to talk from the mind. Humility is to see that anything that the mind thinks is important is just the mind's self-importance that perpetuates the play of separation, right? The constant giving airtime, let's say, to the mind is just the continuation of the story of me and the play of separation. There are so many tricks the mind comes forward with. Just to notice how the mind believes that it's important to express. Well, the mind just said, but the mind's saying, right? All of these times, in a way, what the mind is thinking, it reveals where there are attachments and hooks. That is true. But it's to recognize the subtlety of how the mind and the me wants to perpetuate its expression. In a way, we have to say that this is just part of the arrogance of the mind and the me that thinks that it knows something and that what it knows needs to be expressed. It needs to be brought into the open. But it's truly not relevant. You are not bound by your thoughts. Who you are in truth is free right now, right now. Even the idea that your thoughts bind you is just another thought. Even the idea that you are a separate me is just a thought. Even the idea that you're not awakened, enlightened consciousness is just a thought, right? When thoughts are given power, you start living as what you believe you are. So everything that's appearing as life is appearing in order to see through the illusion, right? Once we've seen through the illusion, we're not home and dry, but we have a depth of clarity and we're starting to root. But as we're starting to root in, even more important, to not give airtime and allegiance to those thoughts that want to divide. Of course, sometimes there are thoughts that are sticky, and we bring them forward so as not to deny what is sticky. But there has to be such a discernment about, let's say, true courage, true humility of bringing something forward. And that subtlety, which has that arrogant flavor, right? We recognize it. It has that flavor of ha, 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 right? It's the mind trying to perpetuate itself. The mind says, right? It's just to attune you, to have the discernment to see the subtle ways that the play of the illusion and the perspective that is illusory is constantly trying to assert itself. When you're in clear seeing, when you're resting in the being, don't give it away. Don't go back to the illusion the next second. Oh yeah, you're expressing something incredibly profound and beautiful. A cloud goes by. Oh, let's talk about the cloud, right? Sun shining, incredible day, clear blue sky. I know that I'm the infinite blue sky. Oh, there's a cloud. Let's talk about the cloud. No, really, let's talk just about the cloud. Oh, let's get really involved in the cloudiness and dull everything down here. No, be the sunshine, be the beaming radiance of the glory, of the eternal, timeless one that you are. Every insight, every clear seeing, every glimpse is the profound recognition of your true nature. It's so profound. It's not an experience of the me. Oh yeah, I just had another glimpse of God. But let's talk about the cloud. Right? No, let's not talk about the cloud. This is so profound, what we are opening to here. It changes your whole life out of my life into God's life, right? You are one with God. The second coming of Jesus that has been long spoken about, it is you, it is all of us. It is the true one that we are, right? We are one with Christ consciousness. We are one with divine wholeness. We are that. The second coming of Jesus that has been long waited for is the evolution of consciousness into the rising of the recognition of Christ consciousness, right? We are here to see through the illusion of separation and to rise in the glory of who we truly are. Oh, but shall we just talk about the cloud? No, let's not talk about the cloud. Let's see that what is the point talking about a cloud when the beaming glory of God is shining right here as your heart? We are here to live this enlightenment that gets spoken of. It is the embodiment of the divine. It's the being, the living embodiment of the divine. There's no enlightenment for divinity because divinity is already whole and divine. There's no enlightenment for the self. In the absolute, it's a joke. What are they talking about? Right? What is already whole. What is full and rich. What is spoken of as enlightenment, awakening, is awakening out of the illusion of separation and living as the embodiment. How do we live as the embodiment? We stop talking about the cloud when the glory of God is shining. We stop giving airtime to the weather patterns and giving, let's say, importance. Right? Oh, the mind says. It doesn't matter. See the irrelevance. See that what is shining, right? What is shining is empty of content in the ways we have been used to, but it is full of the richness of the glory of God, right? Let us continue the teaching that Jesus came to share with us. I'm speaking about Jesus because I think it's Easter. Maybe that's why. right? Keep having this feeling. We are Jesus. we, the awakeness of truth is Jesus, right? It's no different. It's what Jesus' teaching was for, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding in Christianity, right? The interpretation, but the truth is what Jesus came, what Jesus' story, Jesus' teaching is here to tell us is, don't talk about the cloud. Be the glory of God. Be the eternal living truth right here now, right? Don't believe your own story. Don't believe the fiction. Know what is true. And what is true is this moment, your presence with no thought. You can know the truth of who you are in the felt sense of being. It's the simple, incredible, profound truth, and it is beyond experience. The felt sense of presence brings you to the edge of experience, and you fall off. You fall out of the illusion of separation. When you know who you are, be who you are. The greatest gift that came my way when this dawning of the glory started to reveal itself, the seeing through the illusion, was the message: do not live in doubt. Live the awakeness, live with no doubt, live with absolute conviction of the truth of who you are. It landed so deeply here. Everything else was pushed aside. This is what I am. I am the awake being. There is no doubt here. I am not the person. I am presence. I am the silence. I am the silence. I am the silence. I am the silence. Whatever the mind is saying, I am the silence. I am the silence. I am the silence. I am the glory. I am the oneness of God. I am the truth, the holiness, the sacredness. This is what I am. Everything else that is coming and going, I am not. Live it. Abide in it. Even if there are weather patterns trying to come in, and I can assure you, those weather patterns, they try to come in, they still try to come in. The difference, let's say, between us is that I give no allegiance to that. None. Right? In essence, in truth, we are the same. The difference is that I rest in the glory and the knowing, and I will not leave it. I will not let anything take me away from that. Whatever tries, whatever ever tries, no way, right? No way, no way will I talk about the cloud when the glory of God is shining as my heart. And the truth, the same truth is true for you. You are the same one. You are the same truth. I see only that in you. The rest is illusion. There is only one. We are that same one. This is the glory. This is the shining truth we are here to fall into, to shine as, and to live as. The embodiment of this is what they call enlightenment. But who cares, right? When the glory is shining, we're not trying to label it. We're not trying to define it. We're not trying to explain it. We're not telling anyone about it. We're just living in the gorgeous glory that is freedom. The truth is, you are free. You have always been free when you are resting as the vast infinite sky. When you're talking about the cloud, you're pretending that you're not free. But the truth is the truth is the truth, and it's shining. Whatever you think about, whatever you are talking about, the truth is you are the divine glory that is ever shining. There you go again, pretending that you're talking about the cloud and it's important. There you go again. It's irrelevant. Let's live this truth. Let's bring this shining glory right to the surface of life through our lived experience. Let us live in divine service. Let us live the holiness of who we are right on the surface of life. To blossom in this truth, we also have to be firmly rooted in and as life living itself. Life living itself is everything that is happening. We're not creating spiritual moods. We're not conceptualizing what this living truth is. We're not dissecting it and fragmenting it. We're living completely rooted in our humanness, completely rooted, right? Roots in the mud in order for the lotus to blossom, right? It needs to be rooted in order to blossom. So we're rooted in the fertile ground, life living itself. It's not personal. It's not a personal life. It's life living itself. And life living itself is living all of this. It's wide open, allowing, accepting. It does not have a narrative about itself. It does not evaluate and give a commentary on itself. It does not fragment itself. It is just living itself, rooted in its own knowing of what it is in truth, and all that unfolds is known to be the same oneness. We do not cultivate and create sincerity, generosity, compassion, patience, love. We don't generate them. It's the essence nature. They're not even qualities. It's just the essence nature. It's just what is shining when we are resting in this truth. So we do not need to spend time trying to generate good habits, better habits. We need to see through all of those spiritual ideas and come to the oneness of being, where all of this is just shining as the true nature. You are not a thought. You are not an experience. You are not anything that comes and goes. You are before everything in truth. There are no ideas and concepts that are true. Shine the light upon all the ideas, beliefs, and concepts, and know that if you are aware of them, if they come and go in any way, if they move and change, they are not the truth. The truth is the felt sense of being. You are the truth. You're not an idea. You're not a belief. You're not an experience. You are the living truth. You are the living answer to every question, and your heart already knows this. Your heart already knows because the spark of God is inside you. The light is on inside you. Some call it the soul, right? It's the true heart. It's the self. It's the knowing of your essence nature. And in the felt sense of being, that knowing is right here. In the felt sense of being, that knowing is right here. It is the only truth you can confirm. Are you here now? Yes, that's it. It's over. You are that. You are that. You are the being that is simply being. You are the presence. Knowing your own presence is presence being present to itself, present to the knowing of your own simple nature. There's nothing to understand with the mind. There's nothing to get. You are not bound by the mind. You're not bound or affected by any thought. You just are completely and utterly independent from all thought. You don't have to quiet the mind, see through thoughts. You don't have to be practiced in any way. It's just to recognize that what you are is not touched in any way by a single thought. The sun is shining. The sun is always shining brilliant, regardless of the weather patterns, regardless of the time of day or night. The sun is shining, right? You're before all of that. You're before creation, even. You're before the manifest. You're before form. You're before body. You're before birth. And you are after death. Underlying the whole play of life, of the human experience, you just are, simply here now. The dawning of this is the light of remembering, being seen inside the innermost being. The innermost being itself sees its own light and recognizes its own nature as the resonating light of being. This is who you are. Where you feel the resonance of this, stay close to the resonance, but do not create any ideas about what you need to do. There are no instructions. There is no teaching. There is no technique. There's nothing that can bring you to yourself. Nothing that can have you remain as yourself. It is ever fresh, this recognition. Ever fresh in this moment. In this moment, are you talking about the cloud, or are you resting as the vast, open, infinite sky? It's this simple. Are you talking about the cloud, or are you resting as the vast, open, infinite sky? And so vast, open, infinite sky here now, and here now, here now, here now, shining, shining, shining. Yes, aware of the cloud, but shining, shining, shining. Yes, aware of the rain and the storm, but here shining, not talking about the weather when the glory of God is shining here now. And also not taking ownership of the glory of God. Right? Let it shine. Let it shine. It has its own way of expressing. Let's clear up something else. When you come into interaction and you're in a clear seeing, you don't have to go to the mind to speak about it. No, it speaks all by itself. I'm not in my mind telling you something that I read in a book or that somebody once told me. No, it's just like a wellspring. It's self-born knowledge. It's the flow of intelligence. It's wisdom. And you have this too. You too are the wellspring that springs from the silence. There is an alive expression that just springs, and every being has it in some flavor or another, right? It doesn't have to be articulate. It doesn't have to make sense to the mind. Please don't even let it make sense to the mind. It doesn't need to be rehearsed. It doesn't need to be understood and made into an articulate way. The stumbling grace of true flowing expression, it carries the transmission. You could say one word one word from the depths of the being, and it would be the profundity of silence, more profound than a whole written, practiced, rehearsed articulation of the mind's conceptual attempt at understanding what this glory is. So you do not have to come to the mind in order to interact or express this truth. Practice it by yourself. Practice allowing words to come, either written or just coming forward. Allowing words to come. And if there's a pull of the heart to come into interaction, let truth stumble forward from your lips. Let it fall from your mouth, right? It's so much more profound than anything that the mind can imagine. It's not about what you look like. It's not about how you're seen. It's not about how anyone else receives it. It's about allowing the great shining glory to tumble forward. Oh no, I've got God inside me. I'm not going to say anything about it in case it comes out all wrong. I'm going to make a fool of myself. Who cares? Who cares? Let truth come forward and know that sometimes that truth is just allowing the truth of your heart to express in messiness, right down from that rootedness of life living itself. Sometimes that rootedness of life living itself, it tumbles forward as a vulnerable expression, right? That isn't mind, right? That isn't speaking about the cloud. That is allowing true vulnerability to spill forward, right? Come to discern the difference of giving airtime to a thought and allowing the truth of the heart, even in vulnerability, to not be denied. You can usually feel it because the heart is usually beating or the belly is churning. When truth is coming forward, whatever it's going to express, it will usually, at least in the earlier days of allowing it to come forward, because there's going to be layers of vulnerability that you're moving through to start with. The heart will beat, the belly will churn. There's a sign, right? Right? You're going to feel like you're going to lose your breath. But when you actually allow whatever is inside that churning, that deep beating come forward, it's so profound to step through the veils of separation, to step through the veils of protection and risk making a fool of yourself. Risk saying something that you wish you hadn't said, right? It's so much more profound than trying to say something that's all neatly orchestrated by the mind that has absolutely no resonance and lands like a stone, right? And the north wind blows through and it has no, let's say, true meaning, right? The mind thinks, oh, this has got meaning. This is important. I better share this. No, let all that stuff be seen for what it is, right? Talking about the cloud. Don't talk about the cloud. It's not important. Or be willing to bring it forward and have it pointed to. That's the cloud. That's the mind talking about itself, thinking that what it thinks is important, but it's not. It's not important at all. What is important is the truth of the heart, right? How funny that in our human condition, we spend so much time talking about the weather, right? What is that great metaphor, right? We're trying to avoid the truth. Let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about the weather. How's the weather there today? Right? Let's talk about the weather and deflect away from allowing the truth of the heart to spill forward. So it is to discern. It is to discern. And of course, there are going to be these moments of talking about the clouds when the glory of God is shining. But as the aware being, keep shining the light and notice. In truth, it doesn't matter if you talk about the cloud. Have the courage to make a seeming mistake, right? The mind would see it as a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's just a revealing. It's not important. But if it comes forward, it's coming forward to be humbled, right? It wants to be truly humbled. Whatever you're thinking, it doesn't matter. The truth of the heart, the vulnerable expression of the heart, all of it matters. Even the parts that we think we don't want to share, right? Can you feel the difference? All of the truth of the heart matters. The tenderness, the preciousness, the brokenness, it all matters. It all matters. We're not speaking about denying your vulnerability and the human fragility. We're not speaking about denying that. We're actually speaking about allowing that, not denying that, and the importance of not denying that. Right? Let the glory shine. Let the glory shine. And on the way to the glory shining, let the vulnerability come forward. Let nothing be pushed away, right? Being firmly rooted, life rooted in life. Whatever we are going through in our human experience has got nothing to do with the depth of our awakeness, right? We have an idea that the depths of our awakeness means that we wouldn't go through anything difficult. But even in the depths of knowing the truth of who we are, we go through things that are challenging, right? Of course, how we are with those becomes gentler, but at the same time, in the wide openness of heart, the depths of compassion have us feeling more deeply. And we're so wide open that we don't want to step away from being one, feeling it all, right? Hard things happen in our human experience, right? Things that crack our hearts open. And they are supposed to. They're supposed to crack our hearts open even more. They're supposed to bring the feeling of heart breaking. But heart, in truth, never breaks. When the sense of human heart breaking is present, it is human heart breaking open into the remembering of infinite heart. And infinite heart is open to it all, is willing to taste it all, and is willing to taste the flavors of intensity, right? But it's not separating anything, but it's like standing right in the face of a storm and saying, okay, right, okay, feel it all, meet it all. It's not to say that feelings don't come forward and tears whatever, don't come forward. But nothing is pushed away. This is the difference. It's not resisted, right? What is resisted, it will find a way of coming forward. What does that wise little line say? Something about what you resist will persist. And it's true, right? It's wisdom. It's wisdom, right? They might make fridge magnets out of that stuff, but it's true wisdom. If you resist it, it will keep coming up. It will keep coming up because it's trying to surface. It's trying to surface. Anything that we have inside us, we have to find reconciliation with it. We have to find reconciliation, not in the psychological functioning. We have to find reconciliation in the oneness of the heart. So let's say we have to find reconciliation in the light of the heart that we could also call the soul. We find reconciliation in our essence, in our sense of our inner world, where we know the being, where we know the felt sense, the presence. We find reconciliation of everything here in the truth of the heart. We bring everything to the being. We let everything that we want to resist or that we're challenged by, everything that we want to deny, everything that's been suppressed, we bring it to the altar of now. We bring it to the being. We feed it to the being. We nourish the being by bringing, let's say, our seeming suffering right to the altar of now. We let it come all the way up and we offer it. And the offering is to feel it. Let it come forward right into, like, let it rise up and be felt. When we let it rise up and be felt, and we don't use all of the strategies to deflect and numb and push it away and deny it, when we let it rise up, this is how we reconcile. We reconcile like the wild intensity of the human experience into divinity. We reconcile it into oneness. We bring it to oneness. We say within our depths of willingness to meet it, to let it be an offering, we say, this too is God. This too is God. By not resisting it, right? By feeling it. This too is God. This too. And the surrender comes as the reconciliation happens in the heart, where we don't divide and protect and defend, where we stay completely open in the meeting of whatever is right here. Because whatever is right here is true in the moment, let's say. The story about it is not the truth of who you are, but the aliveness of life is. Right? So as these words come, feel the difference, feel the ability to discern, and know that in a little while you can ask questions about this so you can get really clear about discerning, right? Of course, questions are of the mind, but the holy answer is always here now. But even, let's say, questions, the energy of a true question is a pattern of consciousness that is wanting to surface to come to clarity, right? It's not talking about the cloud, right? The energy of that giving airtime to the mind is a very different flavor. And I really invite you to feel the different flavor. The flavor of talking about the cloud when you can be resting in being is a quality of division. It's a quality of the me that's talking, right? It's going to the me. It's going to the me. It's giving the power in the moment to the me that says, separate, divide, believe in the illusion, right? So when you hear that voice, no way, no way, right? The true mantra, the mantra of the true warrior, no way, no way. It's different. It's a really different energy. And it's important to discern, okay, let's say it's more important to make the mistake, the mind thinks it's a mistake, of talking about the cloud and giving airtime to the mind and having it revealed. It's more important to flow in that way than to go into a depth of protection that says, oh God, I better not reveal anything in case I do it wrong, right? That's protection. That's the mind. What we're speaking of is the vulnerability, because there is no right or wrong in truth. It's all vulnerable. Even the voice that says, oh, mind says, but just to know that when mind says something that's separation, it's going to be illuminated. It's not going to be embellished. Ooh, let's bring it forward. What has mind got to say now? I know, let's leave the glory of God and talk about separation and the illusion. It's impossible, right? So discern that true humility is the courage to stand in the light and the glory of a wide open heart that is vulnerable, to stand wide open before the wilds of life living itself and just meet it all. To know that to be cracked open and face it, face the grief that life brings us, right? Life, human experience, it brings us the grief of the sense of losing, devastation, right? It strips us. There's a quality of grief that is so profound, and it's part of being stripped, right? It's the willingness to face life in its tumultuous wildness. It's not a story of poor me and I've lost. It's not a story of separation. It's a willingness to be the wide openness, and that whatever happens, happens, right? Be surprised, be touched, be moved. Let tears fall. Have no way of interpreting what happens through your form. Fall to your knees. Be completely unaffected. Be surprised, but meet it all with the utter openness that is not contriving to be any particular way, that's not controlling, is not protecting. There are ways that we have learned to suppress so much. We have learned to suppress. We have learned that so much of our feeling is not acceptable. So such a part of this great unraveling into our divine nature, into divine wholeness, is meeting all of the ways that we have learned to suppress. We have learned that expressions of emotion are not acceptable, and especially things like anger, right? I'm flying the flag for anger right now, because in spiritual circles, particularly, anger is seen as so unacceptable. Let us know that all of us have a holy rage inside us that has been suppressed. And at some point, we will have to meet it. We will have to let the suppressed anger from our young lives come forward. And we're so afraid of having it. No, I don't have any anger. No, anger, no, don't know what you're talking about. Nothing wrong here, right? So it's passive, right? It gets suppressed. And then this passive aggressive way of interacting, right? Because this latent anger that somehow has found its way into being unacceptable. And what we deem with the mind as unacceptable, we keep pushing down, right? There are all qualities of emotion and wilds of our human experience that we've pushed down. When we push it down and resist it, it starts to send messages because it wants to, it has to come forward. So it will start to create quirks in the body, right? Essentially, it's all trying to surface. And it is our grace-filled service to allow what has been pushed down to surface, right? Anger is such an interesting one because somehow it's such a taboo that we don't want. Don't let me be angry. Don't let anyone think I'm angry. I'd rather die than anyone think I'm angry. Angry? Nope, I'm happy, right? So it gets denied and it gets denied, right? And what happens on the surface of life? War. Why? Because anger is hiding inside all humans. I mean, there's so many subtleties to it. It's all intricate, but we're not talking about psychological functioning. We're talking about patterns of consciousness. We have to allow everything that has been suppressed to come forward. How do we know that we have anger in there? We get agitated. We get a little bit aggravated, right? It's the subtle surfacing of anger. We get disappointed. We get frustrated. We try to control. We're trying to push it down, right? But anger is just in a way, anger is just an armoring. Underneath anger is much more tender feeling. So in a way, anger, it's a protection. It's a tenderness. And here, as I'm flying my flag for anger, it's an invitation for everything not to be denied. It was a really illuminating part of the unfolding here to recognize this that's being expressed about anger and how deeply suppressed, and that we all have anger. And we have to find a way to allow our aggravation, our agitations, and all our ways of keeping a lid on it to come forward, right? Whenever it tries to surface, let it be holy. How can it come to wholeness if it's pushed down? We have to let, and anger might not be the right word that resonates for you, right? It could be holy fury, whatever. It could be a different emotion that's particularly feels like it's suppressed. But with control, it's controlled. There's a strategy to manage it, right? We have to allow anger to be allowed to come forward. We have to welcome it, right? Right here, right now. Let's welcome anger into love. Let's welcome suppressed anger, rage, fury into holiness. Let's welcome agitation, aggravation, protection, frustration into holiness. Let's allow everything that is pushed down to not be denied. We're not speaking of a story about it, and in a way, words, they're our way of communicating. We're speaking of a flavor of discordant consciousness, that if it isn't allowed to come to wholeness, right? So we speak about it now in the impersonal. If it isn't allowed to come to wholeness, how can it unravel? How can it untangle? And it has to untangle and unravel through us. So yes, that kind of hot fury, reactive, we don't really want to project it. We don't want to project it and be angry. But there's even a moment where if we're feeling angry with an apparent other and reaction comes, that we want to let the uprising of that energy come, because it's an opportunity. But it's to feel like, to take a responsibility. I feel angry, right? Anger is here. Not you did this and blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's not projecting it in blame, but allowing, right, that simplicity of anger is here. I feel anger, right? In the humanness, I feel anger. It's allowing this pattern of consciousness to come forward and to start to notice all of the subtle ways that it's trying to surface in every single life. Right? You're happy, happy, happy. You're driving the car. Somebody cuts in front of you. There it is, right? There it is. It's something inside you. If you have no anger inside you, you will not react, right? There might be an instinctual kind of, but you won't project it's right. We have to start seeing this. It's not personal. It's a discordant pattern of consciousness that is crying out through the manifest appearance of war, right? To be integrated, to come forward, right? So we all have our duty, our service, to see how this plays in our life, right? So we speak in a very general way about not denying anything, letting it all come forward, be welcome. But right now we're speaking in a way that is really inviting a flavor of consciousness that is so pushed down. And when it's pushed down, in the power, in the imbalance of power that plays a separation in the collective, that energy in the power imbalance, it plays out as negativity. It plays out, right? It's playing out. Let's say it's that flavor of reaction playing out in the collective. Whereas there is a way that we can use this energy in a very profound way, that when we recognize it, we can meet it, not deny it, welcome it. And let's say it carries a power as we meet it, and it has a power and it's not denied. That power, let's say it transmutes as a flavor of consciousness, it transmutes into like a motivated flow of consciousness. It transmutes into the power for true change to happen, the power for love to rise, to know what's true, right? It transmutes into like a fierce compassion, even, right? It's not anger. It's not holding any connection to past, but it transmutes into like a fierceness for truth, a fierceness to rest in what is true. It transmutes into a fierceness to not be fooled by the illusion, right? Can you feel how the threads are coming together? Everything that we're speaking about today. It transmutes into like a flow of true, alive consciousness that's flowing as like a passion for truth, right? It's motivated for truth. And it's absolutely committed wholeheartedly to uplifting truth, the glory, not talking about the cloud, right? It's a force of divinity that is on the surface of life that says, no way to making an allegiance with separation. No way to talking about the cloud when the glory of God is shining. It uplifts what is true, right? It's in utter allegiance to what is true. But it has to be transmuted through the system to not be carrying the flavor of anger. Because when we are projecting anger and we're invested in that, we are again perpetuating the allegiance with separation, right? So it's our service, it's our duty to keep meeting it as it is with everything, right? As it is with everything. But these words are coming so that we have the ability to welcome our anger into holiness. We have the ability to discern and illuminate our ways of interacting and being. Anger is innocent. The reasons that anger came in were challenges in the human experience. And we learned that somehow our expression was not acceptable. We weren't able to express fully what was happening, and we couldn't handle and navigate the feelings. So they got pushed down and trapped. And they become part of what crystallizes the sense of separation, right? So we're not speaking about psychological functioning here. We're speaking about how the flow of consciousness crystallizes into believing it is separate from the whole. It's never separate from the whole. But we have this ability through illuminating and meeting this intelligence to free these patterns, not by just opening to the abstract recognition of who we are and knowing the being, which of course is absolutely essential. But as we know the being that we are, we live as life itself. And the intelligence of the flow of life is giving us this information today. This is the intelligence of life itself, living itself, offering the intelligence of how to untangle these patterns of consciousness, and that the denial of this isn't the way for it to unravel. In our human experience, we have a service through our human experience, and our service is to awaken to true nature and to live embodied in true nature, and to continue to integrate and bring to the surface deeper and deeper clear flows of divine light, love, wholeness, right? In order for this to happen, we have to refine our nervous systems and clear the stress that takes precedent when we're invested and identified with the discordant patterns of consciousness. And this is why we talk about the cloud when the glory of God is shining and trying to get to the surface. So perhaps there's a way that these words make sense. Perhaps there's a sense of understanding. It's all happening in the resonance of true intelligence. It's all happening in the wisdom. The mind will also attempt to understand, and it can understand so much, but it cannot understand the entirety. It absolutely does not have the capacity in limitation, but as consciousness, as true intelligence, it has the capacity. But that is not the mind that is dividing that we're speaking about. Where there is the capacity to understand and resonate and flow in the true intelligence is the mind of God. It's the cosmic mind. It's the universal mind. It's not a mind that is perpetuating through thought the illusion of separation, right? It's different, right? So it's important to recognize the cosmic mind, because the cosmic mind is the unimpeded flow of consciousness. It's what moves as the flow. It's not personal. It belongs to no one. And yet, my goodness, it is supremely wise. It is self-born knowledge, birthing itself out of itself in every moment as fresh, alive intelligence. And it resonates with a transmission. And the transmission is the field of alive awakeness resonating at the frequency of now, yes, truth, love, being. It's not someone giving something to someone. It's enlivening the one field that we all are. And our access to this field is in the felt sense of being. here now, the glory of God shining. In the felt sense of being, the presence of Jesus is here. The presence of every saint and sage and avatar that we have known through time is right here as pure, awake, divine consciousness, right? Pure wholeness, right here. Does not matter if we are pulled to a particular frequency or resonance of an avatar or saint or sage, does not matter. It's all one. The surface appearances are just the costumes that the oneness wore at that time perfectly. And each life played out the way that it needed to play out in order to bring this truth to the surface of life. So that we know the eternal, timeless nature is ever shining before everything as the unmoving, unchanging. Shining in this moment as the felt sense of being. Who you are is immaculate, sinless, perfection. There has never been a mistake. The felt sense of being offers the immediate, spontaneous, direct experience of your essence nature as being one with divinity, docked in the heart of God. We can call it Christ consciousness, we can call it Buddha nature, we can call it Shiva, we can call it Ma, we can call it whatever. It's divine wholeness. And it's here alive inside you, and the knowing of who you are is the opening to the totality and the flow of grace. The radiant, shining heart is who you are in truth. Immaculate, innocent, pure beyond imagining, untouched, untainted, undisturbed. And in the knowing of this essence nature, life is living as life itself in utter harmony with itself, in and as everything. And in the process of living rooted, everything is fertile ground for consciousness to purify and transmute into the deeper and deeper remembering of the essence nature all the way through.